So the axe is forged and heat treated, and we are ready to start sharpening this bad boy. So the biggest addition from my last video, how I sharpen my axes, is upgrading to the Vashti Pilot 2x72 grinder. That's this here. It's a massive upgrade because the belt doesn't go run smooth, and that's important. This is a stock configuration. Hopefully the 2024 video on sharpening an axe, this is going to be upgraded to maybe a rubber wheel or a different configuration on here to get a little bit better of a slack belt. It's a little bit challenging to work in here. I'll show you that as we go. But this is a big upgrade from the 3x90. One of the coolest things about a 2x72 grinder is you have a ton of different options for belts. Sharpening, you're going to want to start with an 80 grit. I use 80 grit ceramics. What I like about the ceramic over the aluminum oxide in an 80 grit is there's a little bit more girth in the thickness of the blade. So when I come in to do my slack belt, you got a little bit more kind of like resistance, so you can just polish it in a little bit. That's kind of a weird way to say it. You'll see how it goes, but it cuts a little bit better. But then as soon as I'm out of the 80 grit, I go to the aluminum oxide and I want that flex. So 80 grit is here, then we go to a 220 or a 240, doesn't matter. And then I jump up to my 400 and a 600. At that point, I go to the buffer, and you'll see that we're done. You could continue to go if you wanted. I just don't find that the return on investment is worth it. This is the Blackhawk axe. This is my 4-pound axe made from 1912 train rail. And this is where I start them. And so if you are doing refurbishment, you're going to be a whole lot further along on the front end. But what's important when you start, or before you start sharpening, is that you get the front cleaned up, profile line you want, no chips. That's really important. The other thing that's super important, do not let this thing get hot. That's what that pails of water is there for. I will spend 70% of my time grinding this axe on the 80 grit. And then after that, it's really just kind of polishing in a sense. Run the axe up. The reason I like doing this is that I can push on the platen to get rid of material quickly versus a slack belt. And then number two, it helps you control your profiles because you can just see the top, especially on a forged axe, you're starting to get rid of some highs and lows. And so grinding this way allows you to see that. And I'll take it down to about, let's see, 3/32 of a land on the top, which is the flat section, before I'll go to the slack belt. You gotta really watch what you're doing using your eyes. Speaking of eyes, you notice I'm wearing prescription glasses. It's not because I'm getting old. It's because I couldn't find my safety glasses this morning, right? If you look at the axe right now, the bevel angle is all over the place. I'm not stressed about that. What I'm really trying to do is get the front line consistent. And you'll see that I keep turning it over and looking at how the angle is coming down. I'm setting it up for the slack belt so that it'll true up. I think that's the best way to say it. So right now it looks like garbage, but it'll true up. I'm gonna go now into the slack belt. We better quickly talk about the angle because that's pretty important. I've adopted the sort of way that Buck and Billy Ray was teaching me and how he kind of goes about it. What I like about that is that it's really fun to use the axe because it just sticks into wood. I lay it real back in there, okay? So at this point, with the slack belt, I'm happy with how everything's coming in on the angles, on the ends, and then that I'm consistent thickness across the edge here. So now what I'm going to do is just keep going and just get it to where there's not much of an edge on the top, and then carry on to the next belts. It is important though just to be looking at your thicknesses across the top, because if you have a really thick spot, you want to work that zone specifically to bring it down so it's all even. My goal coming off the 80 grit belt is that everything is set up the way I want it, and I just have to basically put a burr on it and get rid of that, chase it down, you know what I mean? Okay, changing out to the 240 here. I'm gonna focus on this, making sure that this is all into 240, and then we'll go to the bevel, make sure we got our burr, and then we'll go to the next belt. Change it out to the 400, and a couple things happen at this point here. I have gone up as high as I can until I feel like I'm going to start to get chatter in the blade, and that's because I steel wheel and being in the gap here. So I go up as far as I can, but I'm not too worried about this section in here. I'll show you how I deal with that at the end. This is my speed for the sander. And we will run it at about 50% for the 400 and the 600. Oh yeah, there you can see the really clear in here. You can see the bevel, or sorry, the burr. All right, 400 is done. We don't hang out there too long. Pop it into our final 600 grit here. So I'm finished here on the 600. There you can see that burr. It's that silver line on the edge. There's a good shot of it right there. And the more consistent that burr is across the edge, the better it is. If it stops at some point and then comes back, it means you've got a spot that's thicker, which is a dull spot. So then you have to keep going. So the last stop at the belt sander is this conditioning belt. This is a fine conditioning belt. I'm using this to blend in this section of the axe. If I had what I believe is like a rubber contact wheel up here, I think I could bypass this step and that would be more desirable. So this is kind of my way of going around it. All right, we got this bad boy finished up. I don't take it past that. I mean, you could keep going, but in my perspective, for an axe, it's just not worth it. So we're gonna test it out. Before we do that though, I wanna thank today's sponsor, which is Squarespace, the one-stop shop for creating your online identity. When I first started out, way back, I needed a website. Squarespace wasn't around, or I didn't know about it. Talked to a guy who makes websites, and he built me a website. Is that somebody here? Neighbor brought raspberries over. Isn't that neighborly? When you have a website and you do it yourself, websites need maintenance and they break. That's frustrating because then you gotta talk to somebody to fix it. Gets into a big thing. My point is, Squarespace. Once you got a Squarespace website, they take care of you. Runs in the background so you can do what's important, which in this case, for me, make an axis. Award-winning templates, drag and drop like never before with the new Fluid engine. Get your domain name, get a Square Reader, hook it up to your Squarespace app. You can sell anywhere you wanna go. Oh, no! I just ticked the axe into the table. Why would you do that? Because I was talking about Squarespace and I wasn't thinking what I was doing. We're gonna have to resharpen that. Head over to squarespace.com/TimD. 10% off your first purchase. Thank you, Squarespace, for sponsoring this video. Now, let's go resharpen this axe. I don't actually do this on the axes when we send them out because as soon as you use it like a couple times, that burr is gone. But just because we're having fun today, this is certainly all right. Here we go, guys. Let's try her out. Whew. That is tasty. Nothing to complain about there. Look forward to seeing you in the next one. Till then, keep the forge lit. Adios.